everybody's gonna be together. Probably, I don't know that it'll be significant, so maybe more of a benchmark on if we see, I don't know how we would define that, but I feel it's too vague to say if we see an uptick in cases, because right now, we virtually have none. We have these 3 that are basically over it, and it didn't affect the county at all. So I can see just mathematically that we'll see an uptick in cases if we reopen, because somebody's bound to have it, somebody's bound to transmit it. I still don't think that's reason to stay closed. If we see significant increase that actually starts to demonstrate this could be a serious problem, then I'm good with, scaling back again, but, it would need to be significant, because statistically right now, if we infected every man, woman, and child in this county, the hospitalization rate is 14%. And that would be tough. But we could get through that. And it's not gonna infect every man, woman, and child in the county. We're not gonna have 10,000 people infected. So, I don't know, I would just like to see us define, what do we mean by uptick in cases? Because what we're giving them is a little bit of leeway to say, well, you had 3 more cases this week, so everybody back to your house. Shut it down. So I just don't wanna, what I'm trying to avoid are business owners, when I'm just kind of interacting on social media and seeing where people are at, the biggest problem they have is the roller coaster of not knowing what's going on. So to reopen and then be forced to close again, would be a real problem for them. It's not good to plan that way, and so I think if we set some realistic benchmarks, so if this gets out of hand, then yeah, we'll scale it back again, but it would have to really get out of hand.
I think Dr. Bian addresses that, and I'm gonna read for those that are on the phone or whoever, what I submitted to Dr. Bian on Sunday and what he reviewed and his response. It's a soft opening, what we could do, not to open everything up, because no one's trying to do that at all. And so these are just bullet points, and Dr. Bian answered it. Places of worship would be one of them. And he addressed that as long as they're well situated and a long ways away. Item 2 was open restaurants at 30%, which is less than the 50% the state has, but the restaurants would be able to open if they have 100, they could seat 30 people in distancing. He addressed the families going to dinner. Number 3, he did not agree with opening fitness centers at least 10 feet apart, utilizing 2 or 3 treadmills, exercise machines distance. He felt like exposing people would higher the rate. Item 4, opened a swimming pool at very limited basis with keeping swimmers in a real distance apart. He thought that would be okay, but be strictly enforced by the staff. Beauty and barber shops by appointment only, with no more than 4 customers 10 feet apart, where they have stations on 5 chairs. Every 3rd chair would be open, but they would only allow up to 4 people in each beauty salon for haircuts and normal hygiene. Item 7 was the golf course allowing up to foursome with 1 player in each cart or walking, maintaining distance. This is exactly what we had in place before 2 weeks ago when everything was shut down. He thought his comment on that was that is reasonable. Item 4 is open public parks and walking trails. He thought that would, keeping substantial distance apart, he thought that was reasonable. And during each 2-week period, if there is a spike in COVID-19, and here's the real caveat to what Ian said, we would go back to quarantine immediately. His comment was, I'm aware of what you're trying to convey. If there is evidence of any community spread, we would return to status quo, not meaning his department would shut it down himself. So those were all by our public health officer, who is a very qualified physician and is very experienced in this. It's signed by Dr. Bian. If public members of the public want it, it will be available in the clerk's office. So that being said, and everybody listened to what we have going on last night, is there any commissioners that would like to make a statement of any kind?
The only comment I'd like to make, I was contacted yesterday by a representative of KGHM. Their concern was that we have pretty much been off the radar. I mean, our governor's made the statement that he's not aware of what's going on in White Pine County with this. They've been allowed to operate pretty much as normally as they can, keeping 600 people employed and collecting wages. Their concern is with this letter bringing us onto the radar and really, for lack of a better term, a retaliatory strike to let us know where the power lies. And the power does lie with the governor and with the state, and we really don't have any recourse legally. Should he decide that the mine is too much of a risk and shut that down, or any other large employers. I mean, if we were to shut down all of the mining, you know, you're talking a substantial percentage of our higher paying jobs in this community, putting them out of work during this time. So I understand that completely. As a business operator, man, I'd like to be open today, but I think we do need to look at the bigger picture, that if we, I don't want to hit a beehive with a baseball bat and really take us from off the radar to being a main focus and just seeing how far this thing goes. And so I am concerned with that.
You're dead on in your analysis. I would only say that, and I agree completely with that stance. But we're already on the radar. There are organizations like the Reno Gazette-Journal, for reasons I can't comprehend, have taken it upon themselves to pit us against the governor. Every time our sheriff comes out with a statement, anytime anything happens, those guys like to come up with some inflammatory interpretation of what was said and what was done. And now it sounds like, I don't know who the representative was, but I think she was a member of probably one of those media outlets that was local, that called us out by name at his press conference a little while ago, and said, what about counties like that don't want to, you know, stay closed? And so I feel like we're already on his radar. I feel like we already, the noise that the Republican Party's been making about doing a recall with him has already painted a target on our back. And so possibly writing a letter that's probably better worded than I would have.
Yeah, it is very nicely worded.
That is very kind, and supportive. I feel like that's professional. We're opening the doors of dialogue and not sticking our middle finger up and causing a problem. Because this is the problem we're facing. I'm not an attorney, but I believe the governor is overstepping some bounds in terms of his ability to just shut down the economy. We've just put the Constitution in the shredder over a pandemic, and that's troubling at best. We're in kind of a tough situation, having sworn to uphold that. Giving him carte blanche to just decide to keep the state closed as long as he wants, there's no light at the end of that tunnel. And for us to stay closed as a community with 3 cases, and I want to remind everybody, if you really think about it, how closed have we really been? We're all still going to the grocery stores. We're all still going to the restaurants. We just go and pick it up. There are truck stops still operating. There are gas stations still operating. People are going in and out of this community. I don't believe we've had a decrease in traffic. 30,000 vehicles a day. It may have gone up. If we were going to see an outbreak here, we'd have seen it by now, in my opinion. We're down to 3. It's only been 3. I feel like it's not out of bounds for us to respectfully go to the governor and say, listen, our community is going to be in big trouble if we don't get back open.
My only caveat is I just wonder if we would be better off. There's other counties in the state that are in about the same boat we're in. And I wonder if we might relieve some of this focus being directly on us if we were to form a coalition with those counties and go as a group. And that way, it gives us a little better standing when we go to the governor, and it relieves, if there is some pushback, it relieves the focus of being on just our county.
Sure, that's fair.
I have some thoughts too.
Okay.
Last Thursday, April 16th, when the president and his team had their press conference on the opening of America. I thought that what we, I listened to that and I read the comments. I think that in those comments that were made, the president commented on that some states could start a soft opening, and then he said, quote, literally tomorrow. Vice President Pence also is the leading person on the coronavirus task force. So one thing that was commented on there was the flexibility that will be given to parts of the country that will be given guidance and greater flexibility. I think that we need to incorporate some of these words that we heard from our leaders. And I also think that with Dr. Fauci that he said, and I think that this was pretty recent too, I think it was actually on the same day, was that that we could expect a slow rollout dictated by local authorities, one that is heavily dependent on that community's ability to test, provide medical care, and to do contact tracing. I think we're fully capable of doing that. We have 7 respirators here. I think Elko only has 3. We have MedX that has also, with their paramedics, have offered to pitch in if need be, should that happen. And I think that tracing would be fairly easy here. And also in regards to the mine, right now what the mine is doing, and I did have a conversation with an individual that called me also, they are even doing more than what the governor has recommended. That said, there was quite a bit of concern about what this county did to dilute the precautions that they are taking by completely opening up. So, and I totally respect that. They've done an awful lot for this community and also protecting. They participate on our emergency management meetings, leadership meetings that we have had once a week. So I think that we truly need to do that. I think inviting these words, I think it's also important to include Dr. Bien's qualifications because he is also a physician in Las Vegas. So I think it would be important to point that out in his letter, in this letter also. So I think if we could, it's a very good, I was pleasantly surprised and appreciated, you know, the tone that it was written in. But I think that maybe some additions to kind of use the government's own words. And I think, I personally would like to at least wait until the people that are in quarantine, the family that is in quarantine, they're supposed to be tested on the 24th. And I would like to see how that test, I will assume that that'll probably be, they will come out of quarantine after that. But those are kind of my thoughts about what we ought to add, you know, to the letter, along with the more, you know, significant, well, I guess Dr. Bien has it in his verbiage, you know, if there's any evidence of community spread, then immediately we would return back to quarantine and status quo.
And that's back to my point. I think we need to be more specific about that because any evidence of community spread is absurd. Of course there's going to be community spread. If somebody's infected with it and we go back to normal.
Yeah, it needs to be a more substantial.
Giving them the right to just, what, one more person got it, everybody back to your home. Like, no, we're not doing that. It's unstable, it's unfair to the community. Now, I'm gonna ask a question. I am not asking this to be inflammatory. I think that we should just know all of what we're getting into, 100%. So I'm asking, what recourse? Let's say we paint the target on our back and we become the governor's favorite dartboard. What happens?
The question is, and I'm gonna speak up so I can be heard. There's just that question is so broad, because right now, we're just talking about setting this letter that recognizes the governor's authority to manage the state and promulgate directives. I think it's important for everyone listening, especially any news media listening, that we have taken the governor's directives very seriously here in White County, and the sheriff and myself have enforced those and met daily almost with Dr. Bune, our local public health official, to make sure that we not only roll out and educate our community on those rules, but that we also enforce them. And no matter what this board decides to do, or what orders or letters it wants to send, the sheriff and I are still bound to enforcing the directives. And we'll look at every violation or case on a case-by-case basis and utilize our discretion to move forward with that. So I just want to make sure that's clear. There's no open rebellion against the governor in this county. We support him. We understand the position he's taken, we understand he's listening to his doctors and he's making those directives. What we want to do, what I understand this commission wants to do, is educate him on the other harms that are occurring across the state, especially in our little community because we were so tight. And our special circumstances with our low infection rate being the 3, that is one family unit that contracted out of our community, right? See, what everyone needs to understand also is prior to, when the governor first issued his recommendations, you remember when he did that big press conference, and it took him about a week before he put it in directive narration. Our public health officer took steps and actually had a more stringent control over our community and we put laws and ordinances in place that were stricter than the governor's. And so, to answer your question, Travis, what about the opposite? If the state opens up and we need to control it locally, we always have the ability to control it locally through our public health officer and through the rules that this commission promulgates, okay? So that needs to be really important. Because the only way the governor would even consider doing a county-by-county basis is if he had confidence in that county government to be able to protect the citizens and to enforce whatever rules and directives we have locally. So some of those principles may need to be expressed in this letter as well. But to answer your question specifically, Mr. Bullis, it depends on what action we take. And I say we, and then I can only provide legal counsel to this board, and then you will have to make your own decision. Whatever direction this board wants to take will necessitate what kind of consequence that we're gonna see. It depends what you wanna do, Mr. Bullis, to see what kind of consequence we're gonna have. There is state funding that we receive. There are measures for removal from office, for malfeasance or delegation, abandoning your duty, right? There's a lot of tools available. And we have to remember also, the office of the district attorney is different than the sheriff, because any authority I get, it actually comes from the state. You know, I represent the state of Nevada in court, and I also represent this board, so I will give counsel, but I don't have the authority or ability to usurp the governor's authority. There is Attorney General Barr for the United States said yesterday that if the states go too far in infringing on these constitutional rights, our civil liberties, they may expose themselves to liability. So there may be, for individuals and businesses that are affected by this, whether your religious rights or your business rights, or if you're treated differently than other people across the state, you may have a civil claim against the governor or a class action lawsuit. That's not for us maybe to decide or to opine on. And I don't know that we're there yet. Absent a closed litigation session to talk about any action this board wants to take against the governor's office or the governor, we'd have to discuss that, and I'd have to get counsel, but no one's suggesting that yet. And I want to make sure it's clear. We have done everything we can to follow the governor's directives, and this board has been very supportive of it, of the governor and his directives. We're just looking forward, right, about how long this is going to go and what kind of permanent damage we're going to sustain, and what you can do as a commission or as an individual to try to remedy that or address it. So I guess it depends on what actions you want to consider doing, and then we'll have to take those on an independent basis.
Travis?
Mike, can you address to our, the constituency base out there that, you know, there's the things that, you know, we're not fighting for them, or we're not this, that, and the other, But what they need to understand is, okay, that's fine if, you know, if we all got expelled off this board, or you got, but it's like, then we become under state control, and that's what we can't have happen.
Yeah, quite literally, if I fail to act, the Attorney General can send a deputy out here and remove me, and they can start acting in my place. And the same, and the commissioner can be removed as well for malfeasance in office. Malfeasance can be construed to be taking illegal action contrary to the Constitution and statutes of Nevada. So we have to be calculated. We want to represent our community. We want to express their, and look out for their best concerns, like sending a letter. I mean, sending a letter is not a big deal, as long, especially this letter is, you know, well written. It's not making a demand at all. It's offering a suggestion, right? But if the commission wants to take some sort of formal action, contrary to the governor's directives, we're gonna have to have a closed litigation session on how that might affect us. And I don't wanna discuss those necessarily in open meeting. Does that make sense? And maybe provide better counsel depending on what action you wanna take. But I think that the takeaway from this meeting is, this letter is a suggestion on how we could manage our counties across the state with our public health officers and our local authority. I mean, the statutes and the ordinances are set up to address infectious diseases. It was contemplated in our country that local governments can handle their local populace. And we might be able to take that burden off the governor's desk, because he's trying to figure out how to balance everyone's interests.
I would not in any way, shape, or form approve any action that would put our district attorney or our sheriff in direct opposition in any way, shape, or form.
That doesn't mean we can stand by. If there were some major violation in the Constitution, we also took an oath to defend the Constitution. So we are all
Yes.
feeling this conflict. Where does our duty lie? When can we advocate, and how do we advocate to make sure we're on the side of the law?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that said, I think that, you know, I would like to add a couple of the things that were suggested. And, you know, there's not necessarily any harm in asking to take a look at our smaller counties. I right at first, and Travis can tell you, when this first came out, I was in no way, shape, or form being in opposition of the governor's directives. At the same time, trying to find that balance to these smaller communities and counties that are so struggling that, you know, that it is truly sad. And that balance of, you know, just like the governor said, where you're not gonna put, you know, you can't put a dollar on a life, basically. But I concurred with Shane, Commissioner Bybee, in regards to maybe contacting some of the other counties, the smaller ones, like Eureka, those that are close, Pershing, you know, those that don't have any. I know that Elko has been pretty upset with not moving forward. So, I mean, we can certainly go ahead and I think that I would like to have more substance in the letter in regards to having the qualifications even. Let them know that, because if they're gonna be looking at our abilities, I think that we need to put in there the abilities that we have.
One more item, and it goes along with what Lori said and also with what Shane said. I reached out to the Job Connect, and these smaller counties, which we're both addressing, Pershing, White Pine, Story, Mineral. And I'm gonna give you a brief rundown of the amount of unemployment that's taking place just year to date. Pershing County has a 52% increase. White Pine has an 81%. These are unemployment claims, 81%. Story, 77. Mineral, 86. Lincoln, 63. Lander, 72. Humboldt, 86. Eureka, 6. Esmeralda, 89. Elko, 84. Churchill, 80. For an average of 71% increase in unemployment claims year to date for the week ending April 15th. That is a substantial amount of money, and gives you an idea of just how much impact this is having on the smaller counties as far as job loss. And it's just, as longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get. This is just as of April 15th. These are really, really high numbers in claims. And just a real quick for White Pine County, a year ago, we had 31 claims. Today, we have 164. That is a substantial amount, and some of these counties are more than ours. And these are the rural counties that we're talking about when we listen to the governor and he explains how all the epidemic is spreading. The unemployment in the rural counties, which we all have less than, there's not one rural county. There's 2 counties that have over 100,000 population in the city, Washoe and Clark. But the rest of these counties that we just did are the same as us. They're in the same boat as we are. But the unemployment is staggering, and the effects are tremendous, and the job losses and the income. So I just, all that concern, plus what everybody else is, and it's all been great dialogue. We've opened the eyes, and we can send a really, a letter that shows how White Pine County, and you can listen to the other counties too, Elkhorn. We're all in the same boat. So it's kind of like, you know, we have a really good doctor, Dr. Bien, but look at the big picture, and not everybody, we're not all under the same umbrella. This isn't one size fits all. This is for all of us rurals, because we're important. We aren't as many population, but all of our surrounding counties, if you want to play, states, if I want to play around the golf, I can go to Utah, Arizona, California, or Oregon and play, but I cannot play in the state of Nevada. So these are just, these are just examples. So as we write the letters, just, I agree with everybody. We're not in your face, we're not fighting the government, we're just trying to show them how we live, which isn't maybe something that a lot of people don't understand that came from the city.
Also, you know, when we talk about, I want to call back to the uptick. We talked about the uptick in cases that might mandate going back to a stricter lockdown type scenario. You can't look at each case as equal. It depends. If someone tests positive and if the public health officer in the hospital is able to identify and quarantine an individual and trace back, we have a great ability to do that in this community that you might not have in larger metropolitan areas. So that's another, when you talk about putting numbers on things or reopening, I think we need to take that into consideration as well, that we have so much better control over our community. And our community has responded very well to the directives that have been put out. And they should, and the governor needs to know that White Pine County is not saying no. We're just, look, I have watched his press releases. I've also been discouraged because he puts 100% of his decisions on his doctors. Those doctors aren't trained, nor is it their prerogative to think about the economic impact of a job loss or being locked in a home. They are only concerned about the spread of disease.
Right.
And so there needs to be some balance, and that is also what I think his constituents, right, the governor's people of Nevada want to help articulate is use your discretion, governor, and balance the information you're getting from your doctors, because if it's up to the doctors, they'd have us all locked down, you know, in a bubble, right? But there's also harm, damage, pain and suffering, mental anguish that is occurring. It's not just profits for lives. It's pain for pain. And we need to at least recognize that. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And that's why each one of you have lost sleep as well, because you see the anguish and pain that your constituents here locally are going through. And you want to do anything you can to help ease that. But we also have to be smart and be lawful. And so as we move forward, if you want to get more input from other counties, if we want to do a couple more drafts in this letter and include some of this information, we have to have a meeting next week, because at the end of this month, our state of emergency for White Pine County expires. And we need to talk about whether we're going to continue our local regulations, which kind of piggyback the governor's, and our state of emergency beyond April 30th. So we have to have a short meeting next week, and we can follow back up with this letter at that time, and maybe give the governor another, I was expecting his address to be tomorrow or Friday. I was surprised it happened last night. And maybe see if there is a decline, because he wanted to wait for 14 days so we had a decline in these cases, not the plateau wasn't good enough. Maybe we'll have more information included in our letter as well, and inform our decisions moving forward as to whether we should continue our state of emergency or what. Also, it's important for you to know, just because this county board wants to ease its local restrictions or encourage life to go back to normal, let's just say, the city of Ely may feel differently, and majority of these businesses are within the city of Ely, and they control your license, and so does the state.
Yes.
So it's a little more nuanced than we get a call the shots in. I mean, unfortunately, as much as we are a political entity, we are, when you look at the rules and the statutes, we are a political subdivision of the state of Nevada. And that's difficult to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
Okay, as we've discussed this, I think we've gone into depth. I would like to, Travis wrote a really good letter. I'd like to have Travis meet with the district attorney, draft a new letter, and bring it back to us as quickly as possible. When is the soonest we could have an emergency meeting to call?
Why aren't we gonna have one next week?
Well, we can have an emergency meeting tonight if we want to, if it's not an emergency. Now, what we're saying is, when can we have a special meeting based on our open meeting law and notification requirements?
And
I'm
maybe
trying to
if
beat
the
that
other,
April 30th deadline.
Yes.
if the other commissioners would submit a paragraph or
Please,
an
to
edit
my
to
office.
Mike, and then me and Mike could get together.
'Cause Travis already did the heavy lifting. He wrote a good letter.
He did.
And I think we have some other things that we wanna talk about, so send me your ideas and we can incorporate it.
If I posted the agenda today by 5 and got everything ready, we can hold the meeting as early as Tuesday.
Let's do it Tuesday because the 30th is Friday. Right?
Thursday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather, I won't have a draft of that letter tonight, so we can get the draft of the agenda together, no problem.
You'll have those items to
Do you
meet.
want to do it next Wednesday
Yeah.
then, or?
Why don't we just do it Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday at 9
One
o'clock.
more day, we're still gonna.
She
It's
still
not-
has to have it posted, right? by-
Yeah,
Tomorrow,
Wednesday,
until tomorrow.
having to post it tomorrow would help me breathe a little easier.
That's it.
So Wednesday is, Commissioner, all in favor of doing a
Oh.
meeting on Wednesday?
How about Thursday morning, 9 o'clock?
No, that's, how can we get this to the governor before April 30th? Can you get that?
Let me look at my calendar. Well, he'll get it.
Sure.
Louise will get it to him, and we can email it to him.
Yeah.
We can do, I was gonna say,
We'll
we can
send
do
the
it
ponies
both
across the
ways.
passes to get it there.
Yeah, we can email it and send a hard copy.
So Thursday's better for you, Mike?
Thursday, the 30th would be great.
Okay.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 a.m. Okay, that sounds good. Everybody okay with that? All right, let's kind of move forward. We've spent a lot of time
Well,
on
let's have
it.
a, let's
Let's
have
make a
a,
motion to
table it
table it.
until the third meeting on the 30th. And also, I just want to commend you for your patience with all of this, and I recognize where you're coming from, so thank you.
And Mike, can
Make a
you just, just text me when you have the comments, and then I'll
Yes.
just come up. Okay.
Okay, I need a motion
I'll
to
make
table.
a motion to table this agenda item until next Wednesday's special commission meeting.
Thursday.
Thursdays.
Table the action on the agenda.
Table, yes. Yes, table the action.
I have a motion by Lori to table the action until next Thursday at 9 a.m.
Second.
Second by Shane. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, passed unanimously.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Travis.
very, very much. That was great dialogue, great conversation. Perfect. Okay, item B is elected officials. Again, Mike Wiggle, District Attorney, is some discussion only on the collection or suspension of the county gaming fee pursuant to NRS 463.323 during the statewide gaming shutdown of COVID-19 emergency.
Mr. Chairman, as a county gaming license holder, I will be abstaining from any discussion on this item.
This is discussion only.
Yeah, thank you, and that's a correct abstention, because it would directly affect his business, so, or his pecuniary interest. Look, NRS 46, it took me a while to find this. The sheriff collects gaming fees for the county, okay? And this is found in NRS 463.323, subsection 1, and the relevant part is in your backup, I highlighted it. It says, no license money paid to the sheriff or county license department may be refunded, whether the slot machine, game, or device for which the license was issued has voluntarily ceased, or its license has been revoked, or suspended for any other reason. So there's a couple things going on here. They're having to still pay, these people in these machines, still pay this fee right now, okay? But they're told by the state gaming board to be closed. So they're paying a fee for machines that aren't creating any revenue for them. The problem I have is, if it were a county ordinance, we could easily just, we have all that authority to suspend and do whatever we want, the county ordinances. But being that this is an NRS, and it says this, the county license department or the sheriff, if there is no county license department, shall collect all county license fees. It's mandatory, they collect the fees, and it says they cannot be refunded. Nowhere in here, and I can't find anything on it, talks about a moratorium, that the county has authority to put a moratorium on that. So, something to think about. I don't know whether I can give, I don't know what the legal ramifications would be, who would come down here and shake their finger at, maybe the gaming control board, if we're not collecting those fees. But, what we can do is the board can send direction to the sheriff to not collect those fees on behalf of the county, if it wanted to. Going, you can't refund them, we know that, that's articulated. But, the sheriff is gonna say, but the NRS tells me I shall, you know, so we leave it up to his discretion. But the county commission could say, we're not interested in collecting those until gaming is allowed again. And you can refuse, you can always refuse those revenues, perhaps. And offer them as a refund, just like we refunded, or we're gonna refund George. We can refund those as well. I just wish if it were a county ordinance, it'd be much simpler. But there's a lot of mandatory language in here. So the board can consider that, take an action, collect it.
What's the
This
wish
is
of the
discussion
committee?
only today anyway, but.
Right. We just need some direction on what the board feels on this, so I can talk to our finance director and figure out how we're going to.
My feeling is they shouldn't have to be paying that if they're not collecting any revenue.
And this is, type of stuff is happening all around the world. I mean, students that can't go to class and are out of their dorms, and they're still having to pay rent, or, you know, I mean, there's so much of that, you know.
Well, and you know, they
That's
didn't,
a good analogy, but.
they did not anticipate a statewide closing of gaming when they wrote the statute.
Yeah.
They were thinking about license revocation and other issues.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I think he probably could ask the sheriff not to collect them, or if he does, you as a board can decide to refund them.
I'd be open for you guys maybe to just, without killing yourselves, maybe just put a little more, effort into some creative solution to this, what we could tell the sheriff, how we can do this without too much backlash, but.
Or ask the sheriff not to submit violations of people who are behind on their fees for the next 90 days or something.
Yeah, something like that, from open to.
Hey, Mike, this is Sheriff Enright, can I speak?
Yeah, Scott, thanks.
Thank you for letting me. The way that the statute is written, especially with the shall, I really don't have any discretion other than to collect those fees. It'd be my recommendation to the commission that if they want to, once those fees are collected, then the commission could actually make a resolution to return those fees somewhere along the same lines as you did with Mr. Chachis in the building permit issues there.
It says shall,
Yeah.
may not be refunded.
And the problem with the refund, and look at the language they use, or for any other reason. I mean, it's, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Well, that was what I was gonna ask Mike, since we are under, since the emergency seems to basically kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of tear a lot of pieces of paper up, could we tie this into an emergency order to cover us on the legal side of things?
The Constitution could be put in the shredder, certainly some other badly written law.
Yeah.
But what would the ramifications from the state be?
On this one, I don't know, and that's the thing, I don't wanna risk anything to the people who hold the licensing. So as long as people pay their license fee, those business establishments are, I think, will be protected from gaming. They can tell the gaming board, look, we paid our fees, the sheriff collected.